I'm so serious, like, I'm going to do it.
Ah,
Like, I will book the Airbnb like, I'm gonna
you
book the
can't leave
Airbnb
me.
before the weekends. Like, by, like, next week, I'll have the Airbnb and flights booked. This is in Europe and stay in hostels that are cheap, and then we could just have London as kind of our,
But
like,
Bug,
base. Bug can come.
I feel like you're not thinking this through.
I am. Hey, Josh, we're gonna get Luigi on here, and we can't get Luigi on here before we get you on here. We know you know about us.
I need to like lay in my bed without anyone talking to me for maybe like 3 months.
Great, do that in London.
But I need my bed. Guys, if
That make
anyone out there has a resource for us, please give us the resource. Everyone. Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about Luigi. I feel
Yeah,
like this is outdated.
I was thinking that. A little too
So
late to the party, aren't we?
sorry guys, we meant to record this like weeks ago when it first happened, but now everyone's done. And it's like what's left to talk about with it?
Well, maybe not everyone's talking about it.
I think they are.
You
I really think they are.
want to know how crazy I became? I almost like replied from an account that like on Reddit in the emergency intercom Reddit, I almost replied to like talk about us
Oh my
in the
God.
Reddit from an account like that I've never used.
To just say go check
And
out this podcast.
no, no. Like when everyone was like, they're annoying.
Oh,
I
about the
almost
Kai.
like and I have it written in my notes and I just opened my notes app and it was like the first thing open and I was like, oh my God, like someone needs a job. But wait, she has one.
The first thing in my notes app is London in February.
Oh my
And
God.
then it says ask Brittany
Oh,
tomorrow underneath it because I wrote it last night.
what if I die like this?
You won't.
I feel like I might.
You won't. I won't let you.
We got to
Talking
figure
about
out this
it.
whole Red Scare thing.
I think we have it figured out.
I
I
just
don't
don't
think
believe that. There has to be something missing.
there's just not.
I just feel like there's something behind the scenes that we're not getting at.
I just
Is
don't
it
think
like the
there
way that
is.
I'm friends with Mitch? Do you think? Do you think that's the way people like Dasha?
Maybe, but
For anyone who doesn't know, Mitch, he did used to be against abortion, but we did fix that, so you never know what can happen. Um,
at least Mitch knows what he's posting when he posts it because some people post things without knowing what they're posting. So, and then they mistakenly post propaganda for something.
oh,
So, at least Mitch knows what he's posting.
yeah, and you leftists I hate Israel. You actually aren't even reading what you're posting.
Yeah, so maybe do that. That's crazy,
Guys,
actually. That's insane. Like, how do you not?
no, we're joking because one
Okay.
of our friends accidentally posted, and we also like the friend. Like, it's like not even, but one of our friends accidentally posted propaganda for Israel when they're like really pro-Palestine. It was just like funny because it's like
They didn't read the caption of the post and then
they
they
didn't even read the post.
reposted it on, yeah, they didn't even read the post and they posted on their story.
Because I feel like half
Yeah,
the people I see who post about it haven't even gone that deep into the issue and they're just kind of agreeing with what they see,
what their
which,
friends agree with.
yeah.
Well, that's what I was thinking when our one friend they said that they really didn't know anything about it until like super recently when everything
Yeah.
started happening. And that's
And from the
also,
outside, they seem like one of the biggest
yeah,
advocates, which is like crazy because,
they seem like someone who would know a lot about it and just be very educated on it.
yeah, because that's how they were acting by like the way they were posting and stuff because they had like a really strong opinion on it.
Yeah, but
Um,
also I think that if you have a really strong opinion on something, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the people who have a really strong opinion on something are the ones that are not educated on it. Because I
yeah.
feel like if you were educated on it, then you would have a much more Like you just wouldn't have a strong gung-ho opinion about it one way or the other.
Well, also I think people are just different, so maybe it's not even true. Maybe people would be less likely to like be really angry at someone else's opinion because it's like you can understand where the opinion comes from. Yeah. Anyways, so should we talk about Luigi?
I guess. Do we think he's gonna die?
Oh my God, I hope not.
I think he might.
No!
I think he will.
That
I
feels
feel like
worse than you like telling me that my dad's gonna die.
I feel like most things are worse than me telling you that your dad's gonna die. Do you?
Yeah, that's like you saying like let's leave Bug for a month
Yeah.
while we go to London.
We could be the ones to free him. What if we did that? What if that was our big stunt? Our big
And
thing?
then people would subscribe probably. Hey, what if we got him on here?
That would be awesome. I
I
think
feel
that
like we
every
could. We should get the thing with Ari.
Oh, we have to email her.
You can email.
Would you, if she says yes, you wouldn't do it though? Or
No,
would
I
you
would
do it?
do it.
Okay.
You know, I can advocate for her.
I don't think that that would go over very well.
If we get the girl who used to date SpongeBob
Okay,
on the,
first of
I
all,
mean, used
she
to
didn't,
make was our
she
ex.
was married and had a kid with him.
Okay, if we get that girl on, then
Lindsay, by the way.
I'll be like, yeah, but this is what Ari was probably thinking.
Yeah, right after she talks about how she almost died.
Died giving birth. And then I'll
Yeah.
be like, yeah, but you don't think she's in the wrong. And then, like, if she does think that, I'll like come up with like points to defend her.
Yeah, Ari will love you.
I will die a martyr for her.
Do you think
Okay.
Ari's on Ozempic?
No. Okay, let's talk about Luigi. Come on,
What
my
is there
mom's
to
gonna be
talk?
here.
I also did listen to the True Anon
Do you like
podcast.
it?
Yeah, it was really interesting. It
It
was
was
really
like good,
good.
but also at the same time, like I feel like I didn't take that much away from it
No, same. I was expecting them um
to drop a huge theory.
yeah. That's kind
And
of
I
what I was expecting and they
just
didn't
feel like they
really.
didn't.
Yeah, but it was interesting. They are all very good public speakers and very good researchers, and that's what I aim to be. So it was very inspiring to
Yeah.
listen to, I feel like. If there's anything that I like really
Well,
wanted
okay,
to
I
know.
feel like some interesting stuff that other people haven't said yet. This is obvious and also something people have said, but I just think like the reason we even like wanted to talk about it was because it's this thing that feels very kind of a result of the internet in a way. Like if as long as it is like true, the like whole thing with leaving like the backpack in the park with the Monopoly money, like that entire just like action and it being like pretty performative and very rooted in like internet comedy in some kind of way of
Yeah.
this like ironic like insane thing to do, like making this point and knowing that like everyone's watching and like the reason it works is because like we're all just watching each other. And I think that's an interesting piece of it because like years ago without the internet, there would obviously not have been this reaction. There wouldn't have been the ability
Edits
to
of
do
him.
that. The edits of him, yeah, but he also wouldn't have been able to do what he did and like I think garner the same kind of thing. Like he would have had to do it in a different way because all he did had to do was just like act and know that he'd be watched, you know? And that's
Yeah.
like not a thing that I think we've been in before in the same way.
Yeah. I also think I know people have talked about this and it's pretty obvious too, but it is just really crazy that we're at a point in history now where if something like this does happen, we can immediately go to the internet and find this whole archive of things that will give us clues into the inside of his mind and into the inside of why he did what he did and his motivations. And before that just wasn't possible. Like in order to figure out why someone would murder someone or why someone would commit a crime, like it could only be found out through interviews and through research and psychologists and whatever. And now it's like we have this whole like encyclopedia of information accessible
Mhm.
to us, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that, especially in terms of the evolution of the knowledge that's accessible because I feel like it evolved to a certain point in the online sphere where anyone has this baseline ability to be an internet sleuth.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I think, as someone who grew up before it was like common for everyone to be a part of that kind of behavior, is a weird thing to witness, because I remember being a kid and it was like this special impressive thing to, like, for example, like, oh, someone has a crush and then you're gonna like find out everything about them online, then like tell, like do it like for your friend, and your friend's gonna be so impressed and be like, oh my God, like how did you do this, you're so smart. And now it's like a baseline ability for everyone, which is really weird, because I remember, yeah, like I don't know, I feel like that kind of thing started on Twitter, because that was such a thing where people on Twitter would be like, oh, found all the information about this one thing for my friend, like, and they like think I'm crazy. And it was like this like stan Twitter thing that like girls would do. And now it's like a thing that everyone does.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that that's really interesting. And it's also like you never know, like some random person from the middle of nowhere could find something out through the internet that then ends up being this huge clue or huge like new piece of evidence that just dropped, which is really crazy because that used to be only accessible if you were a police officer or a detective or whatever, and now it's literally anyone can do it. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to the other thing I wanted to mention that I feel like I haven't seen a lot of people talk about really is because he didn't have United health insurance. Like he had like Blue Cross, I think, or something.
Mm.
And I know that, and so I just thought that it was interesting to think about like going after the United Healthcare CEO, because I know that people have said that it was because he's like the most or United Healthcare is the most has the most market value or the most shares, and so that's why he went after them. But I also think that going into that, it's like I'm imagining him being in a hospital, recovering from his back pain, recovering from his surgery, and having to see all of these people walk in through the hospital who get denied because of their insurance, who get, um, yeah, who like aren't able to receive the care that they need. And I feel like seeing that over the period of a month or two as you're in recovery definitely will change you a lot and make you extremely jaded and cynical.
Actually, like
Interesting.
hospitals like suck. Like I feel like you're just watching people not get the help they need. People should really listen to the like the TrueAnon episode about this.
Yeah.
It was because I feel like it gave a really like a better idea of it, because they're like, he's not a leftist. And like a
Yeah.
lot of people think that that's what it was, but he's like not, or maybe like it's an attempt to be that way, but I don't know. I also did think that it was a little bit interesting the way they were being like, he's not a leftist. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff that was happening was like invisible, and it was like things that we weren't seeing. Like we're just taking stuff from the things that are on the surface. And like, yeah, his like he's not like a leftist. Definitely like doing it for a reason that a leftist would do it. And at
Yeah.
that point, like, what is the difference? Because he maybe was like, I don't know, just because he didn't like wasn't radicalized by like this really niche information, I don't think it necessarily means that he's not still of that like thought process and of that like path. Like, I don't know. I don't think like niche information is like easy for everyone to find too. Like that's kind of
Yeah.
in reference to the TrueAnon podcast, because a lot of what they were saying was he's not a leftist because everything that he read is pretty like basic information, which makes sense, but like can't we all be radicalized no matter what we have like found, you know? Like I feel like we can be
Yeah.
radicalized easily by something that's also simple.
Especially if you're talking about it in terms of relativity, because he grew up very rich and very privileged. So I feel like it wouldn't take a lot to radicalize him.
Yeah.
Um, but I also was gonna say that it's also interesting too. This is getting kind of conspiracy theory-ish, but just like the fact that because anyone who commits a crime like that knows that once they do it, everyone's gonna go online and dig up all this information about them. So it's also kind of like, okay, do you purposely plant stuff, that you think is gonna like lead people in a certain way? Like, was any of the stuff that he posted or did planned? Like, he knew people were
Yeah.
gonna find it and think a certain way of it. So I think just like trying to decipher someone's political ideology from this is a really convoluted thing. And I don't think that you can really make a claim like, oh, he was a leftist, oh, or he wasn't a leftist. Cause I feel like that's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're just not going to know.
I mean, based on the stuff that you can see, sure, but there's a lot that could be totally left out of that. I did think it's interesting because they were talking about how that's sort of how the FBI would take note of like someone who's like dangerous in terms of like being radicalized and being able to commit a murder. That is crazy and newer to talk about is that he's getting charged for terrorism. And it's
Yeah.
crazy because like there's so much actual terrorism.
It reminds me of
Like,
like Laura Bates in Men Who
yes,
Hate Women.
exactly.
Yeah, how she defines terrorism and how so many hate crimes against women aren't categorized as terrorism.
There's obviously a crazy double standard going on. Like actual like shootings and mass murders of like women, which are really not talked about, not given big headlines, are like terrorist acts and don't get documented that way. And I don't know. I think that we just need people who are like online. And I honestly think that slowly, maybe it'll become this way. But I think that online people or someone like Laura Bates who wrote that book, like they should be the people in charge of that kind of stuff, you know? And I
Yeah.
think maybe we'll get there one day.
But
Like
Elon
to people
Musk
who
is,
are truly educated on something and like good at.
yeah, I feel like they probably just don't care or it's not a priority to them. But I do think that with the way that things are going, with how important tech is becoming and I feel like the people that are going to be in charge of that are going to be in charge. Then it's like, how do you bridge the gap to make the people who are ethical and responsible and moral in charge of AI and tech?
Yeah, that's really scary because that could just like be in the wrong hands really, really easily.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it already kind of is with everything.
Wait, also, did you see that a lot of major news outlets were blaming video games?
Are
Like,
you serious?
yeah, there was an article that actually was written by someone at Paste, in the video games section, who was just talking about how like these insane like major news outlets are like really like being like insane with their coverage for like the Luigi stuff because they're blaming video games for making him violent. And
That's
it's like,
psychotic.
oh my God, like, are you kidding me right now? Like,
And that's funny too. I remember I got into a discussion with Austin about this so long ago because I was like talking about video games inciting violence in like young boys and stuff. And he was like basically saying how he did a bunch of research on it and it's been disproven time and time again that it's not like it doesn't do that. So for news outlets to be reporting that, it's really funny because it is just like something where it's so easy to pin the blame on that. And it's like anyone listening to that would be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like video games would spark violence. And so, yeah, like that makes sense.
well, everyone just needs to find, like, wants to find a cause,
Everyone needs to
and
read a book.
everyone needs to read a book, is what you need to do. I can easily see a conversation with my mom, for example, going in the way of her reading something like that on the news and being like, yeah, some people think it's like video games. And like that's how like big of a gap there is between the knowledge that like we are getting on this, because I feel like people who are just kind of general public and more get their information from news, like it's like not enough anymore to just get your
Yeah.
information from the news.
But do you feel like that's a generational thing? Because I feel like most young people probably aren't gonna think that, you know?
I don't know. I also feel like I know a lot of young people who like aren't going to think that about like video games, but
But about other
also
stuff.
aren't going to have the same information that we're getting by listening. I do think the True and On podcast was a really good resource. Like it
Yeah.
really painted the entire thing and painted like this might be true and this like we haven't even proven this thing and this is something that we're
Yeah.
talking about widely. For example, like different pieces of evidence that could have easily not even been truly a part of the investigation.
But that's interesting then, because it's like you almost have to be chronically online in order to know what's really happening.
Yeah.
And it's like so many people don't want to be chronically
And it's
online or
intimidating.
fighting
It's like a lot
against
of
it.
work.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also just like, okay, like a lot of people are like, I don't want to be on my phone all day. I don't want to look at a screen. So they're not going to do it. But then it's like, okay, you're kind of just harming yourself in this way, or you're just not getting the full picture because that's just how the society is now, where you can't get the full picture without being online all the time.
No, it's scary. I was just thinking about this exact thing because I was getting really overwhelmed by how much is out there that I realized I feel like I'll discover a little pocket of something and then it feels like
Yeah.
there's so much to understand about it. Like just
Yeah.
something online, like a like subculture or
Yeah.
a social scene or whatever, and I'm fascinated and I feel like I just want to know, especially online stuff, because I've always felt like I've had this really good grasp on anything that's online because it's felt like something I've grown up with and I've never missed anything, and now it's scary because it's so big that even stuff that feels important or like it would be within my realm of knowledge, it can easily just not be,
Yeah.
which is scary, and it makes me want to just like sit down and like spend a week on the internet to like recover all my bases, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I just like having that and being a part of it, and like obviously also just like learning new things, but it is scary and intimidating because a lot of people don't even know where to start with that, I think. So
Yeah, no, that's how I've been feeling over the last couple of weeks too. I think that's part of why, because we went to New York for like a super internet day. Just like
yeah,
in
by
New York,
rhizome.
saw Peter Vack's movie.
It was
But I
so good.
think that's why I felt kind of jaded walking out of that experience, was because I was like, oh, there's so much online that I don't even know about. And there's all of these subcultures and like things that we don't even know about. And it's really interesting.
But
But
then it
yeah.
is like fun to get into.
It is fun. Like made fun of a lot on Instagram, or he's just like him and Betsy Brown, or like there's this connotation behind them, I think.
Well, what do you mean?
Well, I just like told it to Cash because at first I was like, oh yeah, like Master of Come, and he was like, no. And then I was like, we went to see Peter Vack's movie, and he was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, that's like he was just like people on Instagram like make fun of him and Betsy Brown. Like it's just this whole, I don't know. I didn't really do much research into it, but I think that they are just kind of seen as these like memes almost by this other culture of people on Instagram and on the internet, which I think is interesting.
I'm curious about that because I feel like that's something I don't see.
No, same. And I think it's funny too, because I think Cash is probably on a different side of that, where he would see
Exactly,
the
yeah.
people who are like making fun of these people.
Yeah, we should talk to him about that because I'm
Yeah,
curious. They do have these meme accounts that I think are kind of run by people within their circles
which is
who
so funny.
also post about them and kind of make them memes. But it's
Yeah,
like in this, not the way that I'm thinking that Cash is saying.
yeah, like it's in an aware way.
hmm
Also, this is off topic, but I was looking up, because I'm so fascinated by Honor Levi. I don't know how to say her last
Oh,
name.
yeah.
Because she's okay. So basically, her lore is,
Wait, also, where is she? Like, she's kind of within Dimes Square,
yeah,
right? Like, she's friends
yeah.
with like those
Yeah.
people.
People call her the Eve Babbitts, the modern day Eve Babbitts, which like kills me. Like I saw a headline or I saw an article with that headline, and it struck me. She went to Bennington. Let's start there. And do you know why? She went to Bennington because of Bret Easton Ellis.
Oh, okay,
Like
yeah,
that was
that's
like
so
her favorite
funny.
author. So she went to Bennington. She got published in the New Yorker when she was 21 or something.
How do people do that?
I don't know, like that, like let's start there. And also her book, I have it, but I like need you to get it and read it with me. Can you please?
Really want to talk about in detail the entire like movie screening experience because
Yeah.
also the thing with like the Substack article is really
Yeah.
interesting because they were talking about it and I feel like I don't think anyone is posting about them talking about it, and
Yeah.
I think that that's crazy because people really know about that Substack post. It was like this famous thing, and basically like someone asked should I say someone like
Yeah.
asked them about it, and sorry, I'm like not giving good ask them about it, and then they like made everyone in the crowd like raise their hands if they knew who Michael Crumpler was. Is that how you say his name? I might be messing it up,
No.
but I like read that article like 2 years ago. So for me, it was like a crazy thing to hear people still talking about it and still finding their stuff, and even like Dime Square feeling like that's a little bit popularized by him. And it obviously made them mad because they were like, who here even knows who that is? And I was like, oh, so you guys really hate this. I just think that he did
He like,
participate in this like
yeah,
awareness around the culture because he was writing about it like
yeah.
2 years ago. And it was when they were filming the movie that we were seeing, and he was like humiliated or whatever in this like thing, but he wasn't really humiliated. I don't know. It was like this whole thing, and if you've read it, you know. And it's just it's a timepiece.
But the movie was Rachel
Rachel
www.rachelsennett.com. Rachel
Ormont.com.
Orment. I just said rachelsennett.com.
It sat with me. And
Yeah.
I understand it being really offensive, but I don't know. It did just sit with me as like a timepiece of the internet in a certain time period, and like
Yeah.
a thing that we all witnessed. And especially the fact that Dasha was playing kind of herself in, like, not herself, but like this exaggerated character of herself was really
No, that was
interesting.
good.
But yeah, the whole thing with the Substack, when asked, it was like, yeah, I read this article about the movie and this guy being in it, and I thought you guys were going to talk about it, but you haven't even talked about it. And it was
Which shout out to the person who asked
whoever
that.
asked that, I
Like,
was
oh
like,
my
God
God.
bless you for asking this question, because it was funny because also Peter Vack labeled the Q&A thing. He was like, it's PvP Q&A, which I think is kind of funny.
He's so annoying.
I'll
I'm
give it to him.
sorry.
I think he's
I
kind of
hate him.
funny. I
I
think he's
think he's,
mean, but I think he's funny
yeah,
also. So I don't
no.
know.
Also, like him and his, I'm sorry, but like like, are we even going to talk about the incestual
Okay,
aspect
can
of
I
it?
finish my thing?
Sorry.
Also,
Sorry.
I had one more thing to say about Luigi.
Oh, right. I forgot about him.
Okay, basically, in response to that question, they were like, who here knows who that even is? Why are we even still talking about this? Like, Betsy hates to talk about this. It was so weird. And then people, like, half the audience raised their hand and was like, yes, we know who that is. And then they were like, well, who found that movie through that? And then people like put their hands down, and there was less people like raising their hands, and they were like, yeah, yeah. So then no one even. And it's just funny because it's like they had to like do something, and like I don't just like, I think they're kind of interesting. Like like, I don't think Samira likes them, but I kind of like them in a
I think they're
twisted way.
interesting.
I
Like I think you like them in the same way you like Dasha.
yes.
Yes, which I get. I completely
But
understand.
also, I just think with Dasha, there has to be something where something people aren't,
I
because
feel,
so
yeah.
many people are friends with her who are like people love, you
But I
know?
think that all those people are also fucked a little bit. But
Maybe
even
all these politics were made up to pit us against each other.
but it's like I don't even think that it matters really because like Dasha can say like she's like can say the most insane thing ever. And
Yeah.
Charlie XCX is still best friends with her or still good friends with her and people know that and they still love Charlie. So it's like I don't even think it really affects how people view celebrities.
Yeah. Well, that's like what I think is interesting, because it's like, oh, we all know and love and trust Charlie XCX.
Yeah.
And she's friends with this person who a lot of people hate. And she
Yes.
also is like insanely controversial online, and probably in like in a way that's on purpose, but then it's like, where is the line of what
Yeah.
you can and can't say? And I don't know. I feel like I can't even talk about this fully because I'm still like kind of forming how I feel about all of it, because
Same.
I feel like we've known about it for a while, but I feel like we only just like a little bit started to, I guess, like insert ourselves as like not like into it like as audience members, you know.
Yeah.
But like we went to see Dime Square,
The play.
the play, and then we also saw Peter Vack's movie, and I think it was just like an interesting experience to see
Yeah.
a different social scene. But okay, also let me say this last thing about the Luigi stuff, which I thought was really interesting that my friend said. Basically, my friend was just talking, and he was like, yeah, like the US government falling apart feels like a really far off thing, but it feels like this is just an example. And I mean, he didn't really directly say this, but the reason he was talking about it was because like it feels like Luigi and everything is an example of how like fragile everything truly is, and that like things aren't, they have like all these like holes in them, or unless they planned it. But, like the friend was basically just saying, like, people have been born into and died in the US government, so it makes it feel like it's this really minute thing.
Yeah, like
But
indestructible.
yeah, but it also like can fall apart like any other government can. And I think that was just like, I don't know. It was just an interesting thing to think about. I know it's pretty basic.
Every government has fallen apart in history. So it's also just like, oh, are you going to be living during the time period that the government does fall apart? And obviously, no one has lived through the US government falling apart, which makes it seem like it'll never happen. But
Mm.
it is inevitable that every single government will fall. Um, and I also just wanted to say, because I don't think a lot of people are talking about the Pluto and Aquarius thing, but basically Pluto returned to Aquarius on November 19th. And also shout out to our friend Bear, because he kind of introduced me into this and told me this, and that's why I did research on it. But yeah, as soon as it returned to Aquarius, so many governments were thrown into chaos. Um, the French government collapsing, South Koreans fighting martial laws, and now the US people protecting and supporting the killing of Brian Thompson. And it's really interesting because the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was in 1778 to 1798, and it sparked the American Haitian French Industrial Revolution and the Age of Enlightenment. Um, and so the next 2 decades like are leading up to this revolutionary thing where we've been building up to this point for a while now, and these systems cannot continue the way they are. And going back to how the last time it was in Aquarius, it sparked the Age of Enlightenment. I thought that was a really interesting thing because we had Gabby on,
You're
Gabby
good.
Brow, and she was talking about the age of, or she was just talking about technology and how what the future looks like with that in terms of like the upper class and some people not being literate, or some people like it was like I'm not gonna butcher it, but we basically talk about it all in
Yeah,
that
it's like the
episode.
episode that's gonna go up right before this one, I think.
But that's what that reminded me of with like the Age of Enlightenment coming up. That's kind of because everything just happens in cycles. And so this is the
Mm.
new Age of Enlightenment with technology existing in this crazy way that it's never existed before. Um and yeah, and I found this online. Pluto will enter Aquarius on November 19th, 2024, and remain there until 2043. This is a significant event in astrology because it signals a time of profound change in how people view progress, social structures, and collective change. And I think that that is really, really interesting.
How often
And
did you say that it happens?
the
Like,
last time was like 1778. So I think it only
yeah, that's
happens every couple
crazy.
hundred of years.
That's
And it makes
insane.
sense because we're living through an insane time right now where there's so much change happening with like technology is like an insane thing, like just with
Hmm.
how much has changed and evolved since the time we've been alive. And also with the concentration of wealth, like it's worse than the Great Depression, what we're living in right now. The concentration of wealth in the US is the like most that it's ever been. Like even like if you look at something like the Gilded Age, like it's like so much worse than that with who owns the wealth in the country. And so it makes a lot of sense that it's happening right now. And yeah, I just feel like everything happens in cycles, and this is a cycle.
Yeah, I thought what you were saying when we were walking was really interesting because you mentioned that people's reaction to it too, I think was felt like it was a part of that because a lot of people were just like hypothesizing an overthrow of the government or like just thinking that it was a start to a way bigger chain of events
Like
and
more
that
CEOs being killed, and
yeah. And
which I
also just
don't,
like giving a voice to like I think like lower class people who are
yeah,
experiencing these like are more so at the bud of the like terror of the healthcare system. So, yeah.
yeah. And the healthcare system is so bad. It's like comically bad that there's no way it's sustainable. And I feel like this has just been building up for a long time. So
So, yeah.
you want to ask for Josh? Should I ask for Josh?
You asked.
Hey Josh, we're gonna get Luigi on here, and we can't get Luigi on here before we get you on here.
Kind of the
Speed this
stepping
along.
stone.
Speed
Stone.
this along.
Stone.
We know you know about us.
We know you have to
We
know.
know. Like,
And
we're
if you
not
hate us, like,
idiots.
just say so. Like, we'll be fine with it. Like,
It'll
but
blow us up, honestly.
can we just like move on though? Because we're
Yeah.
getting tired of it.
Like, we want to ask for some. We should change it to Luigi.
We should change
Come
it
on the
to
podcast.
Emma.
Yeah.
Emma,
I don't
change
know
it.
why we didn't start with Emma from the beginning because she's a girl and
Yes.
we're just way more likely to get her on and she would love us.
We've thought from the beginning if we get her on, like we're saving her from everything
Yeah.
that she's gone through in the past years and become jaded by as celebrity.
I like how you said that as if she's like been through war.
She
She's
has
like been
been.
through so much.
We have to save her. She's cleaning out her closet and all of her
Stop. She's
clothes are
returning to herself.
plain
She's returning to
colors.
herself.
She's cleaning out her closet.
She's the real edgelord. Everyone likes to think of Dasha as an edgelord.